You ever get that feeling? You're leading, doing all the things, meetings, decisions, the works, but underneath, something just feels a bit off.
Mm.
Like you're kind of on leadership autopilot. And maybe that connection to your deeper purpose, your why, has
Mhm.
gotten a little fuzzy.
Oh, absolutely. That feeling, that disconnect. It's something we hear about quite a bit, especially from leaders in these really intense healthcare environments.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Right. We're focusing on the very real challenges nurse executives are facing in these super complex systems.
It's a tough gig.
It really is. And our source today, these excerpts from the Executive's Compass,
Uh-huh.
a new era of leadership begins here. It just hits this nail right on the head.
It does.
It talks about how so many really passionate leaders, people who care deeply, are feeling, overwhelmed, stretched thin.
And even thinking about leaving, right?
Right.
Quietly, maybe.
Exactly. That quietly considering an exit part really
Good.
stood out, despite being so dedicated.
Yeah, the source material really digs into how those relentless demands can create this gap, a gap between their core values and just the day-to-day grind. They start feeling miles apart.
So our mission for this deep dive, really, is to pull out the core insights from the Executive's Compass.
The essentials.
Yeah, the key principles that can hopefully immediately help you, because we know you're probably incredibly busy, get a clearer, maybe more sustainable, and definitely more impactful way to lead.
And it's not about piling more on your plate. That's crucial.
No, not at all. It's more like a fundamental shift, a recalibration of your whole approach.
Precisely. The framework itself, this executive's compass, it basically acknowledges that the old ways, the traditional leadership models in healthcare, they often just don't cut it anymore. They don't support the leaders enough.
Which means they don't support the organizations either, ultimately.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack why this new compass is needed. The book kicks off by saying the current model just isn't sustainable. And it mentions this idea of silent exit plans. That really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It does. It's a powerful phrase.
It's not people storming out, but that quiet disengagement, checking out mentally.
And what's interesting is how the book frames it. It's not saying it's about, individual leaders failing or not having the drive.
Right.
Instead, it points to the system itself, the structure, the pressures of the role,
Yeah.
how that can breed burnout and this feeling of being, well, off track, misdirected.
Yeah, and it really zeroes in on the problem with reactive leadership. Just constantly putting out fires, jumping from urgent thing to urgent thing.
Mm-hmm.
The book suggests this rewards just output, just getting things done, but maybe not focusing on being present, on intentional leadership.
And the mission can get lost in all that noise, right?
Yeah.
The daily chaos.
Totally. And maybe, just maybe, it even creates a culture where speaking up about something important but maybe less urgent feels risky.
Well, connecting that dot, the book argues it becomes a cycle, doesn't it? Overwhelmed leaders focus on the immediate,
Right.
which means maybe neglecting the bigger picture, the values, and that
Yeah.
hits team morale, affects the culture.
So this framework, the compass, is trying to deliberately interrupt that cycle.
Yes, exactly, a recalibration.
And it does that, according to the source, with three main pillars. The first one is inner alignment leading the self. Which, that just makes sense, right?
It really does.
You can't really steer the ship effectively if your own internal compass is spinning.
The authors really stress this. It's presented as absolutely fundamental. Effective leadership out there starts with understanding and managing yourself in here.
Your internal operating system, like you said.
Yeah.
And that starts with know thyself.
Yeah.
Like really knowing your own emotional landscape, your habits, what pushes your buttons.
Oh, we're triggers, yeah.
And what you fundamentally stand for, your core values.
Mm.
Which makes you wonder, how well, amidst everything else, do you, listening right now, really get those things about yourself?
And the book emphasizes this isn't a one-and-done thing, right? It's ongoing, especially in high-stress jobs.
Constantly checking in.
Yeah, noticing how your internal state is affecting your decisions, your interactions. It's dynamic.
Then it moves to stress mastery and emotional fortitude. It even mentions a specific tool, the stress reset method.
Mm.
Sounds like it's about having actual techniques, practical things you can do to handle the pressure, build resilience before you hit burnout.
And including a specific method like that suggests it's very practical, very action-focused. It's not just saying manage stress, it's offering how.
Right, proactive strategies.
Exactly. To manage those emotional, even physiological responses and hopefully head off burnout at the pass.
And the final part of this first pillar is work-life integration and boundaries. I like how it reframes
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
It really pushes leading by example. It's not just
Wow.
telling your team to take care of themselves, it's showing them by doing it yourself,
Yeah.
intentionally resting, setting clear boundaries.
Yeah. That modeling piece is huge, isn't it? When you, as the leader, actually do prioritize your well-being, it gives permission somehow.
Yeah.
Creates that psychological safety for others to do it too. So the outcome here for this whole pillar is this sense of executive presence that's grounded, rooted in clarity, emotional regulation, and just sustainable energy, not running on fumes.
Okay, so internal foundation.
Yeah.
Check. More solid there. Then the compass point outward to pillar 2. Leadership presence, leading others.
Right, shifting the focus now from self to the team, interpersonal dynamics.
And the emphasis here seems to be on connection, not control.
Definitely. The book argues that real leadership isn't about dictating. It's about building those connections, fostering collaboration.
And a big piece of that is authentic communication and influence. So talking straight with empathy
Genuine empathy.
and influencing people because they trust you, because you're transparent, not just because of your job title.
And the book makes a great point here. Authenticity really lands these days. People can spot insincerity a mile off.
So true.
So leading with that genuine empathy, that openness, it builds much stronger, more lasting influence.
Then there's decision-making and agility. And it talks about pausing, reflecting, responding intentionally, not just knee-jerk reactions.
Yes. That feels like the direct antidote to that autopilot feeling we started with.
It does, doesn't it? Cultivating a more deliberate, maybe more strategic way to decide things.
The book really advocates for building reflection into the process, allows leaders to adapt better instead of just being pushed around by the immediate pressure.
And the last bit of pillar 2,
Yeah.
empowering teams and shared governance, creating psychological safety,
So important.
where people feel okay speaking up, setting up feedback loops that actually work, and really giving people ownership, letting them lead in their own areas.
This is framed as key to unlocking a team's potential. When people feel safe, heard, empowered, they step up.
You get collective responsibility.
Exactly. More engagement, more resilience, more innovation. The goal is teams that feel valued, aligned, and are really bringing their best stuff to the table.
Right. Okay, so self, others. Now the compass points to the biggest circle. Pillar 3. Organizational impact, leading organizational culture and change. This is the legacy stuff.
Yeah, broadening the lens again. How does your leadership shape the whole system, the culture, drive real, lasting change?
And a major part is strategic vision and culture transmutation. Wow, transmutation, that's a strong word.
It is, isn't it?
It sounds like making sure the systems, the way things actually work, line up with the values on the wall.
Precisely. Making the mission operational, not just aspirational.
So it's embedded in everything.
Yeah, the book uses transmutation, I think, to signal a really deep shift. Changing the organization's DNA so those values genuinely drive day-to-day operations and decisions.
That's sustainability and retention strategies. It mentions nurse retention response teams as a specific example.
Concrete action.
It really connects taking care of your people directly to protecting the mission long term. If your team feels supported, they stay. They bring their skills.
It positions retention not just as an HR task, but as like a core strategic necessity. It's about the organization's health and its ability to deliver on its promise over time.
Makes total sense.
Right.
And the final piece of this pillar, advocacy and organizational influence. Using your voice.
Yeah, using your platform.
Leveraging data, stories, having the courage to speak truth to power when things aren't right.
This really emphasizes the leader's role in pushing for systemic improvements. The book suggests it's actually a responsibility, advocate for your team, for the mission, even if it means challenging the status quo.
Right. So the big outcome for this pillar is an organization that's really living its mission, guided by that vision, and set up for sustainable change.
Exactly. Rooted, guided, and structured for the long haul.
So we've walked through the 3 pillars: self, others, organization.
But, the book is realistic, too. It acknowledges that leaders, well, we all drift sometimes, right?
Oh, for sure. It's not about perfection. It's a journey, like you said, constant adjustments. And that's where the compass idea really clicks back in. It's not a magic wand for answers,
No quick fixes.
but it's that reminder, your true north, your direction. And it pushes you to ask some really good reflection questions.
Yeah, prompts for some honest self-assessment. Where might you have drifted from your values?
Exactly. Questions like, where in your leadership have you maybe strayed from your core values? Which of these 3 pillars, self, others, organization feels like it needs your attention right now, today.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, what's one concrete thing, one action you can commit to this week to lead with just a bit more alignment?
Those are really powerful prompts, aren't they? They make it immediate, practical, pinpoint an area, commit to one step, move towards more intentional leadership.
So fundamentally, the executive's compass gives leaders, especially nurse executives in these demanding roles, a practical way to navigate, to lead with more integrity, more alignment.
And ultimately make a bigger, more lasting difference.
And for anyone listening who wants to go deeper, hear more stories maybe.
Yeah, the authors actually have another resource, which sounds really useful.
Right, the Let's Talk About It podcast.
Yeah.
So if this deep dive has kind of piqued your interest, that seems like a great next stop.
Definitely. Hear from other leaders, get different perspectives, practical tips from people actually doing this work.
Sounds like a good follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with as you go about your week is this. Leadership isn't just the external stuff. The meetings, the decisions, the actions everyone sees.
It starts somewhere deeper.
Exactly. It's fundamentally about leading from the inside out. So maybe just mull that over. What does that really mean for your own leadership journey?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you start using your own internal compass right now to guide your way?